Good morning, everybody. And wow, this is quite different from last year. I think we're moving from one level to the other, and thank you, Dr. Irving, for organizing this. And I like to crack a joke that if you haven't realized that I have an accent, then I don't know what planet you're living in. So if you can understand me, just knock the person next to you and ask, what did she just say? That's okay. So the patient narrative I'm about to present is not a narrative of despair, it's a narrative of hope, because we are making advances, and with programs like the one led by Dr. Irwin, we are making sure that the gap between adults living with serious mental illnesses, or even children living with serious mental illnesses, the mortality gap is narrowed every single year. So I don't want you to be sad. I just want you to know that this is possible. We can do it. And we need each and every one of us to have our hands on deck in order to get this accomplished. So this is the story of a 57-year-old unmarried gentleman with chronic schizophrenia, cardiovascular disease, and severe COPD, living in a group home designed for adults with serious mental illnesses and increased medical complexity. He was isolated from his family for several years, and his group home staff was the family he had and his support system. He was diagnosed with advanced stage cancer a few months to his 55th birthday. As it would be expected, he was scared of the unknown. Past trauma from healthcare systems several decades earlier contributed to his fear of losing control and being abandoned. His schizophrenia interfered with his ability to understand the severity of his cancer diagnosis. His cancer team told him that his cancer could not be cured, and that he had two options: to try to slow the cancer or focus on comfort. He said, okay, every time we went to those appointments. But the moment we stepped out of the room, his question to me or any of the staff that accompanied him to his appointment would be, what did they mean? Does that mean I'm going to die? How soon am I going to die? He believed that his care team was overreacting when they suggested that he start treatment right away. Eventually, he got radiation. After radiation, he felt comfortable and he got chemotherapy. And after completing chemotherapy, he decided he wanted maintenance immunotherapy, and he tolerated all treatments extremely well. Many mornings, he struggled and did not wish to get out of bed or leave his home. He declined care even from his group home staff and wanted to take on his day as he would normally do before his cancer diagnosis. 6 months later, his cancer progressed. He was tired, and he had multiple falls. He had multiple times when he did not even want to get out of bed for a shower, and he just wanted to stay in bed. His primary care doctor sent a palliative care nurse to speak to the group home staff. As his cancer got worse and he felt more tired, he was more able to understand how sick he was. Working with his oncology, community mental health, and home visits from his primary care team, the patient decided to change his code status to do not resuscitate and do not intubate. At this time, he became more open to discussing his cancer care goals. And often, he had many questions for his group home staff and his community mental health care team. He would often ask, how serious is this cancer? How long would I live? But every time he asked those questions, our response to him would be, what matters to you most? And in the course of these discussions, he was able to identify 4 important goals for his cancer treatment. He wanted to be comfortable. He wanted to be pain-free, and he did not want any IV lines on him. He wanted to be independent, and by independence, a walk to the neighborhood coffee shop was all he wanted. He did not want somebody to go to the store for him. He wanted to be able to make that walk to the store and get his own coffee. He wanted to reconnect with his family. And above all, he wanted to die in a place he called home, surrounded by his group home staff. While the patient seemed comfortable that he was approaching end of life, his community mental health workers struggled with the idea that his cancer was terminal. Each team member needed to come to terms with their convictions about palliative care, as there was a general confusion between palliative and hospice care. Thankfully, the patient's primary care, oncology, and psychiatry teams were available to discuss with staff and clarify what palliative care is. After staff accepted that he was going to die, they were more able to support him to focus on meeting his own goals. This was not as easy as it sounds. There were times staff would retreat to the office and we can't do this. But they nevertheless strove on. This was challenging. It was hard to communicate across multiple teams, and it was hard to make sense of the patient wanting to get treatment that could make him feel better, but also not wanting to get out of bed in the morning. We strove to support the patient's wishes and prevent him from getting hurt. 12 months to 18 months is the life expectancy estimate for people diagnosed with his type and stage of cancer. But like everything else in life, an estimate is just that, an estimate. This patient made it to 30 months, stayed active in the community, and despite becoming weaker, never experienced severe pain. He reconnected with his family and went out on multiple outings with his family members. And finally, he died where he wanted, at home, after one final trip to the corner coffee store, grabbing his coffee and taking his last sips. And he went out as a pro, and he will always be remembered. So it is not a story of despair. We can do this, but we all need to be on board. Thank you. Can I just